All right, again, welcome Summer Bridge students. So today we're going to be solving equations one step using multiplication and division this time. So the same rules that we did the day before on adding and subtracting are going to be true for multiplying and dividing. So we just need to know our opposites. So if they are multiplying, the opposite is going to be dividing. And vice versa, if they are dividing, then I'm going to be doing multiplying. All right, so let's look at some example problems. All right, so solve each equation. So I first need to ask myself what operation is happening or being done to my variable. I don't see a plus, I don't see a minus, I just see a coefficient and a variable. So we know that that means they are multiplying. Multiplying is that one operation where you don't need a symbol. So since they are multiplying by 2, I'm going to do the opposite and divide. So I give a fraction bar, and I'm going to divide by that exact number. Okay? I don't need to change the number to a -2. I just need to divide by 2. So a 2 divided by 2 is a 1, and I know a 1x equals a 3, because 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now I know 1x is the same as an x. We've talked about that. Okay? So that's why you'll probably see you'll cancel out, just leaving x on the left-hand side equals a 3. So I've solved my equation, I've gotten x by itself. Again, you can double check your answer by plugging it back in up here and say 2 and substitute it with a 3 and ask yourself if that equals 6. 2 times 3 is a 6, so it works out. Okay? Let's look at number 5 real quick. Then I'm going to give you a chance to do some of these. So on number 5, again, they're multiplying because I have a coefficient and a variable right beside each other. So the opposite would be divide. So I'm going to divide on both sides. I divide by the number that's in front of my variable. So I divide by a -9. I don't change it to a +9. So what you do to one side, you do to the other side. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. So that just gives me a 1x, which is the same as an x. And then a negative divided by a negative I know is a positive. And then 81 divided by 9 would be a 9. So my answer would be x equals a +9. Okay? Let's do number 6 together real quick. So they're timesing by 4, so I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides. These will cancel out, leaving you with x, and then I know that 4 doesn't go evenly into 10, so you could either leave it as a decimal and say -10 divided by 4 is -2.5, or if you wanted to, you could leave it as an improper fraction by reducing both the numerator and denominator. They're both divisible by 2, so I would get -5 over 2. So you could say -5/2, or you could say -2.5. Okay? All right, why don't you try 2, 3, and 4 on your own, and then I will throw up the answers. So press pause and try them on your own. All right, so on number 2, I divided by 15 to get 3 on both sides. On number 3, I divided by 8 to get a -8, because remember, a negative divided by a positive is a negative. And then on number 4, I divided by a -5 since they were multiplying by a -5. And then a positive divided by a negative is a negative, so -5. Okay? So these are all examples where they're multiplying two things and you're going to divide. Okay? Let's look at division problems where we're going to multiply. So division problems can be tricky because you're going to see fractions and people tend to hate fractions. So when there is a fraction in front of the variable, so the fraction is the coefficient, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. Okay? So remember, reciprocal means a flip fraction. So if I had 3/4, the reciprocal will be 4/3. Okay? You're just multiplying by the opposite. The reason that works out is if you multiply this, if you multiply the numerator, you would get 12. You multiply the denominator, you get 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1, and then I've got my variable by itself. Okay? So let's look at some problems. So I have a 1/2 in front of my variable. So the opposite of a 1/2 would be a 2 over a 1. So I'm going to multiply by 2 over 1. If I do it to one side, I'm going to do it to the opposite side. So I'm going to multiply by 2 over 1. So now these are going to cancel out, as I showed you before on the top, leaving you with m equals. And then if you can do that on your own, fantastic. I'm going to teach you how to do it in the calculator first. So again, if you want to type a fraction in for 3/4, you're going to hit the green button and then the y equals button, and then that's not working. Okay. Nope, wrong one. Okay. Again, to get a fraction button, you're going to hit the green button, and then the y equals button, and then the enter button. So I've got 3/4. So 3 over a 4, and then hit the right arrow button, and then multiply it. You could do just 2 or 2 over 1 if we want to be 100% right. So then I would get 3 over 2. Okay? And that would be my final answer. Now, if you wanted to do it by hand, all you have to do is multiply the numerator and then multiply the denominator across. So 3 times 2 is a 6. 6 times 1 is a 4. So a 6 over a 4 would be my answer, but the reason is it's not is because it's not simplified. So I can say the numerator and the denominator are both divisible by 2, so my answer would be 3 over 2. Okay? So if you want to do it by hand, all you got to do is multiply the numerator, multiply the denominator, and then simplify your fraction. Okay? Alright, let's try number 9, and I'm going to try you guys do 8 and 10 on your own. Alright, so number 9. I don't have a fraction out front. All I'm going to ask myself, I have m over a 2, and that over means a dividing by. So they are dividing by 2. The opposite of dividing by 2 is to multiply by 2. So I'm going to put a little dot, represent multiply by 2. When I do it to one side, I got to do it to the other side. So I'm going to say dot 2. You could use parentheses if you wanted to as well. So 2 divided by a 2 will give me a 1, so it'll cancel out, leaving me with m equals, and then you just have to multiply your other two terms. So 6 times 2 is 12. Another way you could think about it is you could think about cross multiply. So if you wanted to put that number over a 1, and you would have m over 2 equals 6 over 1, you could cross multiply them, and you would get 1m equals 12, which is the same as m is 12. You could also do it that way. Alright, so you're going to try 8 and 10 on your own. Don't be afraid just because it's a fraction. Multiply by the reciprocal. Alright, press pause. Number 8, I had 7/9, so I had to multiply by the reciprocal, which was 9 over 7. So 9 divided by 9 will go away, 7 divided by 7 goes away, and you're left with a 1m. And then you just have to times by 9 sevens on the other side. So I just did 14 times sign, and then my green button, y equals enter, and then did 9 over 7. Again, if you did it by hand, you would say 14 times 9, and then divide that answer by 7 to get 18. Okay? Alright, on 10, they were dividing by a -7, so the opposite of dividing is multiplying, so I times by a -7. I did it to one side, so I did it to the other side, so then I had -4 times a -7, negative times a negative is a positive, and then 7 times 4 was 28. Okay, so again, that's how I did number 10. Alright, so that's multiplying and dividing. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, it is time to practice. So you've got a lot of options. Don't know if there's a quiz tomorrow. Alright, so there's a quizzes, and like I said, if you were watching this in summer of 2018, then this code works. Otherwise, it doesn't. You could finish your Musology one-step stuff. You can also work on a practice worksheet, which is in the back of the notes, and then there's also a riddle worksheet. So practice makes perfect. Get it done, and let me know if you have any questions.